MIDDLEKAUFF! Hey! Hello, world. Reporting for duty. That's your line.
What's happening?
Bronco country, let's ride.
Rally the troops.
Live show now. Sorry, tweeting. Getting the link out. What's up,
funny.
everybody?
What's funny is reporting for duty. Tigers caddy Stevie Williams is doing this like tell-all podcast, like 45 minutes on just each major they won with an Australian guy. Like, so it's all Australian, but it's called like Chasing Majors. It's not bad. Like, he tells pretty good stories. He told the story of like, it was like 05. They were headed to the major, wherever, U.S. Open. Tiger pulls over the car, looks at him, and he goes, "Stevie, I'm going to become a Navy SEAL." And Stevie at first like laughed, and he's like, he didn't laugh. He was dead serious. So when I said reporting for duty, I just thought of that. Like, Steve was like, he was dead serious.
What if one of us left the show to go be a Navy SEAL?
You know, I was listening to what's his name's book, crazy dude.
Jocko?
No, kind of the Jocko family, but I think I think it's very difficult. Like, once you get to your mid-30s, probably be a no-go.
Of the Jocko family?
Yeah, what's the guy? Oh, David Goggins.
Oh.
Be hard.
All right, we are live on YouTube on Monday. We're not planning to do a podcast today. We're just going to do a live stream. And then we're like, well, let's see. We'll see what happens. So this live stream could become a podcast as well. If you are here on YouTube, we appreciate you very much. Share it with your friends. Tell your friends. Consummate that like button, no doubt, and subscribe to the channel. Podcast is down in the description of the YouTube below. If you're listening to this podcast, it's great to have you there as well. We also have the YouTube channel. You can go and check out the description on the podcast, and there is a YouTube link there. And if you don't mind, maybe give us a little review on iTunes, a little 5-star review, iTunes.
Pretty easy to do. Share it with your friends, share it with your enemies.
Share it with your enemies. Can't forget that line. It's a good call.
I got a couple enemies in my phone that I could shoot at. Hey, I was thinking of you.
Yeah, hey, Dick.
Here's a link. Right to
listen to this.
But I don't think you gotta go Dick. I think you play it nice. Like, hey man, I was just thinking of you. Here's this. Even though that each of you hate each other, that to me is the curveball. It's like the Kershaw in his prime. Like, whoa, didn't see that coming. Imagine if someone you just truly hated and you hate him, he hates you, just sent you a text like, hey man, I just read this article on The Athletic. I thought you'd like it.
I love the enjoy exclamation point.
Yeah,
enjoy.
Have a great day.
Enjoy. It's just like Saints manipulate the cap to sign Jameis. Grigson, where is your guy? Is he in
Minnesota? He's on his. I texted a buddy in the NFL that worked with him. I said, this guy changes more teams than NBA players. I mean, he's been on like 5 teams the last 6 years: Seattle, Cleveland, now Minnesota. He's just bouncing around.
Dave on the stream says, if you sent me that, I would 100% think it was a virus.
I get some of those in my DMs, like, we have $10,000 waiting for you on PayPal. Just give us your link and your sign-in number.
Did you see that the city of Fresno got duped by one of those, African prince scams?
Like, I have $10 million waiting for
$200,000. They were able to recover like $2,200.
Why would they send it to them?
It was disguised. It wasn't an African prince scandal, but it was somewhere in Africa. It was disguised as an invoice for like some company that did construction work for the city.
And the person sent it out?
Yeah, and just somebody handling the invoices. It looked just like the invoice. It looked just like, whatever, John Deere tractors or something. I don't know. And so they just, sent to the bank account on the invoice. They sent the money.
I always say this, guy, and I've watched a lot of criminal shows. I watch a lot of mafia shows. I've watched a lot of cartel shows. I don't think criminals get quite enough credit for their ingenuity, how intelligent they are. Like that is genius. Like if you just send an invoice to a real business, I mean, there's probably a 50-50 chance the person doing it just in and out, right? Just doop, doop, doop. Sometimes, I'd say half the time, if you have good secretaries or whatever, they're going to catch it. But I bet half the times, like, that's a thriving underground cash source.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, do you think John Lynch said 2-2, somebody's trading us 2-2s, and they sent them, and then Jimmy showed up in Carolina, and Carolina had never sent any 2s, and Jimmy just was waiting for somebody from the Panthers to come pick him up from the airport.
What if he's like, guys, I'm talking
where's
to
the
you.
2s?
I'm talking USFL draft, guys. I had 2-2s in USFL draft. What do you guys talk? Not the NFL, the USFL.
This is what Florio wrote on Monday morning before Matt Ryan got traded to the Colts. Did you notice, by the way, John, the same thing happened today? I've been telling you, Monday, same deal happened with Matt Ryan. It was like the Colts are nearing a deal. The Colts are hearing like it's going to be a third rounder. Something's been going on these last few weeks, these NFL trades. Instead of it getting announced or reported when it happens, there's been a lot of these, like the reports are like they're nearing a deal. It's just something's different in the way these trades are getting reported.
Well, just put yourself in the shoes of the GM at Atlanta, the GM of the Colts. Who would want that out? Who's looking for leverage here? Falcons. The GM of the Falcons. So I can give you less, but why?
I don't know. It's just.
But why would the GM of the Falcons care if that was out or not? Because that would get him more leverage.
Oh, you're actually asking me. Sorry, I thought it was rhetorical. I mean, I guess you'd want it out. You'd want somebody else to offer more, but I don't know, the Panthers. I don't. The Saints. I don't know who you wouldn't trade him to the Saints probably. I don't know.
Panther. You wouldn't trade him to either one of those teams.
I don't know. I don't even know if it's necessarily a leverage play from an agent. Are you saying that's what you think it is?
Well, I don't know. I mean, why?
Yeah,
because you're right. The timing of it doesn't make much sense. That comes out and then boom, the dominoes that happened after that. Something doesn't add up. I just can't put the pieces of the puzzle together.
I haven't been able to either, and it's been happening multiple times. And I wonder if it's maybe there's more direct communicate, but they've had a lot of direct communication with agents. I don't know. I don't even have a theory on it. I've just noticed something is different in the way these NFL stories are getting reported, and I can't figure out who benefits from it. But I'm open to everybody's conspiracy theories. I saw one of the Barstool guys retweeted this conspiracy theory about one of the technical fouls in one of the tournament games. Well, anyway, who cares? Never mind. All right, on to what we're going to talk about. Believe me, you're not missing. You can find it. I retweeted it. This is what Florio wrote Monday morning. As we hear it, 49ers GM John Lynch is telling interested teams that he has an offer in hand of 2 second-round picks for Garoppolo. At least one interested team reacted to the news we're told by concluding that if the Niners had 2 first-round picks waiting for Garoppolo, they should take it. This is also, we could debate who.
Why did he start by writing second-round picks and then he wrote first-round picks? Do you get that? Did he mistype there?
That's a good question. That has to be a mistype, right?
Okay.
Would you agree that has to be a mistype?
If he had 2 first-round picks, yeah. If he had 2 second-round picks.
Holding out for the Deshaun trade.
What?
I mean, it has to be 2 2s is what he meant to say. You're right. He says 2 2s the second time. 2 1s the second time. But I read that as somebody reaches out to Florio, who has talked to the Niners. A team reaches out to Florio and says, this guy's telling me he's got 2 2s on the table. Have you heard that? And Florio tells him, I haven't heard that. But thanks for the information. And they both probably conclude that John Lynch is bluffing.
Yeah, I mean, I think they played their hand, and their hand was to be patient and wait everyone out, and eventually they would get the pot. Now, the pot was never going to be like Texans level pot, but they would come up profitable. And I think there's I think there are several variables on their overall thought process here. I think there's some arrogance of like, we're smart. We got a Stanford guy. We got Parag. I think Kyle fucking got a big ego. I mean, they think they're really smart. They should. I mean, they've done good shit. But football, I mean, things change really, really fast. Like Baker Mayfield was the apple of everyone's eye in Cleveland, and now he's shit out of luck. No one wants him, right? I mean, it's just things change fast in the NFL. Hell, Jimmy was starting playoff games. A month later, his arm's in a sling. It's like, whatever. And I also think there's the combination of the arrogance, which all these teams, Coach Reed's arrogant, even Pete Carroll's arrogant. Like arrogance, probably the wrong word, but ego, belief, like stubbornness, probably is a better word sometimes. And then there's the variable of like, we'll keep this guy. Kyle will keep this guy. We will keep this player. and I've said over and over, I do think there is a smaller part of the pie that is that led by the guy that ultimately gives the thumbs up or the thumbs down on literally every personnel decision, and that's Kyle. That he's like, yeah, if we got it, we'll keep him. Which we can get into a little later, the dynamics of that, and we've talked through, but I think they were hoping, to do some sweet deal, right? Maybe a second and a third player, like hoping to just break the bank for this guy. It's kind of clear it was going to get harder and harder. Today, I would say felt like a tornado wiped out any pick that was even out there, didn't it?
Well, and the Deshaun variable is probably the third category, right, for the thing you're talking about. Because that was a major variable. It just so happened as free agency was unfolding, Deshaun had a grand jury decide not to indict him. And so suddenly he became available to trade.
But I would say once he went to Cleveland, didn't impact the Niners that much. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, but I just think the domino effect of the whole thing, of him considering Atlanta then opening their eyes to trading Matt Ryan, Deshaun going to Cleveland, Matt Ryan now becoming available, the Colts liking Matt Ryan more, the Saints deciding, Jimmy getting the surgery, the Saints deciding on Jameis. I mean, it's just Arthur Smith having coached one of the free agent quarterbacks in Tennessee, Marcus Mariota, him being much, much cheaper. Like I think a lot of the things that could go wrong for the Niners went wrong. And that combined with them wanting a lot for him, the surgery, the amount of money he's owed, all of these things. I mean, it was a combination.
I'm not a huge poker guy, though. I live with people in college that loved it. I've watched enough of it on television, right? When you're playing the Texas Hold'em. And, sometimes you got pocket aces or whatever. You're like, you can take some people down. But, you see, if you've watched, the ESPN doesn't feel like they put it on TV as much. But for a long period of time.
No, it doesn't. Did hockey take its place? Where did it go?
I don't know. But didn't it feel for like a 10-year stretch? Like it was on ESPN2 a lot. When you get really aggressive with like a 2 and an 8 or something, you need a lot to go right. You need some flops to go your way. And I wouldn't say the Niners had a 2 and an 8, but they did not have pocket aces. I would say they didn't even have like a whatever they call kings, queens, jacks, like whatever that level is. Like they were single digits, but they were hoping to like play it perfectly and ultimately win some cash. Now they were never going to win the World Series of Poker because they didn't have a Deshaun Watson. But they went in that mindset of, this is where I wonder if the variable is like, we're cool with just folding, which I think they were always cool with folding, basically keeping him. Now, I don't know how for long.
Is fold keeping or is fold cutting?
It does not feel like cutting has been talked about at all besides people like me that are like, I think they're going to cut him. But it's never come out once that they're like, because again, back to Kyle, like, why the fuck would we cut him?
And why would we cut him now? Cut him now, cut him later. Like to me, it's if they don't have to use his money for somebody else, which clearly
they chose not to.
They chose not to, or it might be that they chose not to because they weren't going to pay somebody whatever needed to be spent. That Ward might have been the biggest money deal they were going to do with a free agent.
But they were able to sign him without, with Jimmy staying.
Yeah, they restructured. I'm just saying, like, it's possible that they evaluated the scenario and said, okay, if Von Miller costs this much, we would sign him. But since he's not going to cost this much, then it's not worth cutting Jimmy to sign Von Miller.
I do think it's fair to be critical on a guy that they've seen and kick their ass who's pretty damn good in Chandler Jones. To that would have been a guy no one would have complained. I agree. The only point realistic.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. The only point I'm making is I don't think we can assume if Jimmy had been cut, they would have signed Chandler Jones. Or if Jimmy had been traded, they would have signed Chandler Jones because by and large, that's not how they've operated. That's the only point I'm making on that. Like, I don't think we can just say Jimmy prevented them from signing somebody.
He got 32. Looking at his money, he got $32 million guaranteed. So he got a pretty penny.
Yeah. You agree that's not typically. But I would say this, like, if there were two twos on the table.
But, guy, they haven't been in a position. Part of it goes back to, like, that Jimmy. They haven't really had that much cap space over the last couple of years. They did the one when they first showed up and they signed all those random guys.
That's true.
This would have been the first time where it's like you could restructure, use Jimmy, and you got some wiggle room. Like, you got some to take some shots.
I'm just saying I don't think we can assume. If they thought Chandler Jones is what it would take, then they would have a decision to make. What do we do? Do we cut Jimmy? Do we trade Jimmy for a fifth and then sign Chandler Jones? I don't think we can assume they would have done something with all the cap space. That's the point.
But here's back to you. You said that they haven't operated like that. They haven't had a rookie quarterback. And now they got like the Chargers haven't really operated like
No.
that. Now they, the Chiefs, the Bills, like part of it,
legitimate
you have
point.
to operate like that.
Yeah, legitimate point. I would have been surprised if they had signed Chandler Jones, but the only point I'm making is I don't assume they would have used the Jimmy money on somebody else. That's
So like next year one in a trade. Like, are we gonna just we can't assume because they'll not have any track record. Seems it's gonna.
I don't assume anything with. I don't assume what they'll do next year. I don't know. I'm not saying they should or they shouldn't or they will or they won't. My only point in this part of the conversation is I don't assume they would have used Jimmy money on Chandler Jones or a big money free agent.
Which to me is kind of crazy. No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying like it's crazy that we're even thinking like eventually like next year. Like, what are you going to do? Like, why are you doing this? Like, what's the point of having a rookie quarterback is you have all this fucking wiggle room. And they're wasting it, right? I mean, they wasted this free agency period. We'll see what happens.
So, 2-2s, I don't believe that's true. How would they not have taken 2-2s for Jimmy Garoppolo? You would have made money on the trade from the first time you acquired. You agree with that? Like the Florio report, that's a bluff that if that's what was said, who was offering 2-2s? But do you think that's true? That somebody offered 2-2s and they said no? Or we'll get back to you.
I mean, I think they're lying.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. So Matt Ryan did get traded. And one of the things Diana Rossini wrote, why didn't the Colts go after Jimmy G? From what I was told, they were concerned over the shoulder injury, not much on the medical side, so much as the idea of missing time in the offseason with the new team. This was a red flag. The Colts ultimately traded a third rounder for Matt Ryan, who is on the books for like $24 million this year and $28 million next year in Indy. The Falcons take a $40.5 million dead cap number on him. So I think they saved like $8 million. So good for them.
But I feel like most teams, if it was going to cost a third for Jimmy or a third for Matt Ryan, I would take 36-year-old Matt Ryan. I think so would Kyle Shanahan. I think so would basically every offensive coach. I mean, to me, what hurt Jimmy in this scenario is not necessarily the shoulder. It's that when Matt Ryan legitimately became available and the Falcons, and this is where I think the 49ers were playing some poker, they had to look, because they have the same access as we have. Obviously, they even have more. They go, the Falcons aren't going to eat $40 million of dead cap because no one thought they would. And that's why when it was reported last week that Watson was interested, it's like, well, this is going to be complicated. How are they going to figure this out? And like Mortensen and Schefter was like, they're working through it with Matt Ryan. And it was clearly going to be a complicated scenario. And then I bet Indy, who it felt like was going to just be stuck with Jimmy. Like, that's how it felt. Like they were stuck with Jimmy, not as much they were smitten for Jimmy. They went, well, we like Matt Ryan more. I text multiple people in the NFL today. I said, who was better, Matt Ryan today or Rivers when Indy got him? And both guys said, one guy leaned Matt Ryan, the other guy leaned Rivers. Bottom line, it's a coin flip. Well, that Rivers led them to 11 wins, cruised to the playoffs. And remember, they were actually in a playoff game against the Ravens. Like that team was good. He wasn't perfect. He was an older player, but you get into the playoffs with 11 wins and a good core. Like you can win some games, right? Like
I think they
play in a dome.
I think Matt's a little better than Phillip was at that point, but I agree with you. It's a coin flip. But let me read to you Phillip Rivers' career.
Last thing too. What did Jimmy, like 1 point of separation for the Colts is like, we get rid of Wentz, we get Jimmy's character, we get his leadership. Well, what do Rivers and Matt Ryan have? You see Arthur Blank was like, this guy has been like, they are Jimmy on steroids.
Yeah.
Because they've, been true like to me, Jimmy's been a unique, has Jimmy a franchise quarterback or was he like the starting quarterback on a really good team?
He was a franchise's quarterback.
Yeah. Where those guys were franchise quarterbacks.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about 15-year starters plus 17 years. I mean, also here's the other thing. They're old. They were old, or Phillip was 2 years older. He was 39, I think, when the Colts got him, and Matt Ryan will be 37 on opening day. Here's Phillip Rivers. I'm going to read you the number of games he started by year. 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16. Let's do Matt Ryan now. Starts by year. 16, 14, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 15, 16, 17.
What do they have in common, guy?
They don't miss games.
How many games they miss combined?
That's a combined three missed starts in what is that, 32 years?
Do you know that Phillip Rivers tore his ACL in a playoff game and played the next week?
It's a good thing they lost the next week, or he might have had to. Hey,
yeah, which even he said to I think on the Manning cast this year, it was a modern miracle. Like it wasn't a sustainable thing, but still, it tells you everything you need to know.
So that's 18 years minus 2, because his first 2 years he was the backup for the Chargers, right? So 16 years for Phillip, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years. So 30 years. Matt Ryan and Phillip Rivers combined to average missed one game a decade.
You know, Jimmy's missed 8.5 games the last 2 years.
I mean, Mr. Superfly on the stream. Jimmy's numbers 3, 16, 6, 15.
Underrated 10-game miss in 2020, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Underrated, I just think that year was so weird that unless you're like a Bucks fan, it kind of gets forgotten. It's a lot was going on in society. Jimmy missed a shitload of games that year. There was a lot of Mullins and CJs. You know, it's just I think it got wiped from a lot of people's memory. It was easier to wipe it after this year, right? Make a little playoff run. It's like, okay, you know, we don't even think about that year. But there was a lot of sitting in the box in Tempe or Glendale, Arizona, watching some games that last month. Remember, with a crew of like 7 All-Stars. Yeah, Jimmy was like taking effect. I love like Trent and George was like eating popcorn. It's like what are we doing? Taking notes? Jimmy's like, this is what Bill would want me to do. He's like, Jimmy's like playing tic-tac-toe.
So yeah, man, I'm with you. I Matt Ryan, to me, once he becomes available to the Colts, because the Colts, I don't think were part of the Baker Mayfield club, it became a real problem for them. And now the market is non-existent. I mean, three quarterbacks got new teams on Monday. 3: Mariota, Jameis, Matt Ryan. So now the market is the Panthers. I mean, losing the Colts is a major loss for the 49ers.
That's where it felt like they were kind of held hostage. And the Colts just said, no, we're not held hostage. Matty Ice. They got the river flop for them. And this is where I said, when you play poker, there are just so many things out of their control. Think about this guy. We talk about Jimmy, the 3, 15, 6, 15 or whatever. He got hurt when Brady got suspended. He didn't even make it all 4 games. He got hurt in the second game. That is the most.
You and I talked about that when he got acquired, that would be like, oh, maybe that's a thing that we should be concerned about.
So it's just injured players, man. You want to avoid at all costs. I've said it about Wentz, who I just think for a long time was kind of like a Jimmy in the sense of always hurt, right? Wouldn't you say that Carson's like first 4 years, it was like this guy just gets feet and backs and ACLs. The last several years, Wentz has not missed games. He has played back-to-back 16-game seasons. And you watch him, it's like honestly, he feels like a durable player when I watch him. I don't expect him to get hurt. Jimmy, sometimes he goes down. Is he going to get up?
Well, in 2020, he only played 12 games. Did they bench him?
He got benched. Remember?
Healthy bench?
Healthy bench. Jalen.
Okay.
Which, his career's kind of got derailed.
He does not feel like a healthy player to me, but you're right. I mean, it feels to me like he's always dealing with something.
He has not got an injury that's knocked him out of a game since the playoffs in 2019 when he got a concussion.
Gotcha. So, I mean, part of this is how badly do they want to trade him? The answer is pretty badly. But do they want to trade him?
Why do you assume that?
Well, because they've been trying to trade him.
We sure?
Yeah, they've been trying to trade him. They would like to trade him. I could say. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't mean he stays on the team for a while, or we rule out that he starts week 1. This is what I keep going back to. They traded 3 ones for Trey Lance last year. So they don't want Jimmy to be their quarterback in perpetuity.
I just think if they wanted to trade him, couldn't he already be on the Colts for like a 5th round pick? That's
they want to. They think they're also a value game they're playing here, right? Where they think he's worth something, and they want to squeeze every dime out, and it's now they're in this situation. So I don't, I think part of this is Trey Lance. It could come to the point where Jimmy's still on the roster. You then get to OTAs. Trey Lance is your quarterback. How does Trey Lance look? Maybe then becomes a factor in what happens with Jimmy Garoppolo. But they traded 2 ones and swapped another one to trade Trey Lance. So they, like, Jimmy Garoppolo, in their ideal world, is not the quarterback of the future. And I think there were multiple times this year where it was clear, like, they need more. Kyle wants more out of his quarterback. But they're also, I think, not just going to trade Jimmy or get rid of Jimmy for the sake of it, because we all think, quote unquote, it's time to go on to Trey. Or that they need to get him out of the building for Trey, right?
Isn't that why we're sitting here today, March 21st? Him still on the squad?
Yeah, I mean, now maybe the surgery is part of why we're sitting here too, but here we are. We're sitting here. And we might be sitting here a little while longer. What?
Yeah, I mean, he's not going anywhere. I mean, I kind of expect him to be in training camp now.
Yeah, but he's going to miss OT, right? Anybody who had a concern about his arm isn't going to trade for him before OTAs. Now, maybe the Panthers.
You want to just get into like who is even left? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
But you want to hit Butcher Box really quick?
Yeah, we can.
You want to wait?
Well, you want to make this a separate discussion? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You can start as I pull up the website.
Okay, really quick. Butcherbox.com/ham. Here's what we got for you. You go to butcherbox.com/ham. You get free ground beef for life as long as you're a subscriber. Giving new members free ground beef for life. How do you beat that? They got chickens, they got steaks, they got everything. Just go, you put boxes together, they deliver it every month. It's very easy to set up, but with our butcherbox.com/ham, you get free ground beef for life. Thank us later. Thank us by getting free ground beef, have some tacos, have a burrito, make some burgers. Starting to get sunny outside, now lighter outside longer. Go BBQ, get it on. Make some chili. Love some good chili.
Ooh, all good ideas. Each box contains 8 to 14 pounds of meat, depending on the box you choose. That's enough for 24 individual meals. Packed fresh, shipped frozen for convenience, so you can save time on your next grocery store trip. You can customize your own box or go with one of the ones that ButcherBox already has for you, pre-made or, pre-packaged. Either way, you get exactly what you want, and you get free ground beef. You're right, it is a tongue twister. Free ground beef for life, 2 pounds in every order, as long as you have your membership. So log on to butcherbox.com/ham to claim this deal. This is your chance to never have to shop for ground beef again. It's very good ground beef. We speak from experience. Butcherbox.com/ham. That's butcherbox.com/ham.
Okay. His potential destinations right now. Every team in the NFL has a quarterback, right? After today, all these teams. Now, you can argue the Panthers do not love Sam Darnold. We'll get into that a little bit later. The Houston Texans, I saw Mayoko tweeting that he kind of waving the white flag like this thing. They like Davis Mills. Davis Mills on a shitty roster showed more than enough to not keep rolling. Now, you could argue he's a 3rd-round pick. You bring Jimmy in. Are you gonna trade for Jimmy to be your backup at 27? It makes no sense.
First of all, Davis Mills is not a normal 3rd-round pick to me. Davis Mills is a 1st-round talent that was picked in the 3rd round because he had an injury history and had not played a lot of football. But
I'm not
Davis
saying
Mills,
he's Tom Brady, but
I know you're not.
But don't you think they view like we got to fucking steal?
That's my point. Like Davis Mills is 1st-round skill set and projected 1st-round pick the year before his last year at Stanford. Daniel Jeremiah said it on this show. David Shaw came on and said it. He's a 1st-round quarterback. So
what did he tear his ACL in college?
Yeah, he said he had a few injuries. He had a shoulder. I couldn't keep track of everything, but he didn't play.
He got hurt a lot.
He got hurt a lot. And that's why he hadn't played a lot of football. He started I don't know, 12. I started a very small number of football games.
But
To me, the Texans are out of the question for Jimmy.
The only thing where they're not out of the question in the sense of like they just have him. They don't, Tyrod's not on their squad anymore or whatever. They don't have backup quarterbacks. Caserio, you have to think, was a huge part. I mean, they spent time around. Caserio was a New England guy.
Yeah.
But it's like, do you want Jimmy is he just going to go there to be the backup? And you're not going to trade making $27 million. That makes no sense. But you could say it's never dumb to have multiple quarterbacks, a high-level guy that knows what you like. I mean, they're trying to set a culture there. But again, he's going to be the backup quarterback. So, like, it's pretty clear that the New Orleans Saints said for $21 million, guaranteed over 2 years, we'll take this guy back over trading for Jimmy's 1 year at $27 million. One thing we had talked about is, like, the injuries, an underrated deterrent of Jimmy Garoppolo was the fucking number. If you told me that Jimmy's number was what Baker's number is, and Sam Darnold's number is, the 18, the Colts probably have acquired him before
19.
Matt Ryan thing ever comes available, right? Because that's pretty manageable. You could easily do third for Jimmy, whatever.
You think
18.
even with the shoulder, or
I just think it's easier to justify the number. I think you just keep telling yourself, we're going to trade a third-round pick for this guy, and he can't do anything when we're like, we don't have a quarterback. I would just keep talking myself out, and then you just keep looking at the injury history. You're like, 27 mil. I'm just talking out loud. I don't think he's really that tradable right now, given all the holes filled around the league.
Well, who's left?
Well,
you started going through
think
the
about
list.
Seattle too. A team in your division knows the other three teams in your division so well because where do you spend watching most of your tape? You play 6 of those games. So the other teams are playing each other. Can you imagine how much, and Pete Carroll's what, a defensive guy, how much 49er offense he's seen over the years? Like Pete Carroll, could he rattle off every player's strengths and weaknesses in the league? Who knows? I bet he'd probably get closer than you'd think. I guarantee he has a legit he could go have a serious conversation about Jimmy Garoppolo, right? What he thinks about Jimmy Garoppolo,
Yeah.
strengths, weaknesses, why he wouldn't want him or would want him. Because I do think the Niners, remember Belichick used to trade players to the Bills. Like the Niners would trade him to Seattle at this point, right? You wouldn't be afraid to play him.
You would not be afraid to play him. I think they would trade him there. I don't think they would want him. I don't think they would want him for 2 reasons. The reason you're illustrating, they know him, and reason 2, they got DK. They want to throw the ball down the field.
Drew Lock does have a big arm.
He does. Yeah. Drew Lock has a big arm. So I don't think, clearly, say what you want about Drew Lock. They think there's a chance that he could maybe, possibly, perhaps one day be something. And you already know, like, he has some of the unknown that sometimes a prospect has. You already know what Jimmy Garoppolo is. And no one wants to spend $25 million for what you already know to not be, the kind of quarterback that you can rely on. Okay, so they're out. Well, that's about it then. It's kind of crazy. And I say this all the time. There are so many teams that need a quarterback, and yet it's always hard to find a spot for a quarterback because they're just a little here, a little there. The money matters so much.
There's a difference, too, of like Miami might legitimately need a quarterback pretty soon, but it makes no sense to not just let's see the new coach with Tua. Let's just see it out.
Yeah.
Right. It's some of these teams that might quote unquote, and who knows, the Texans in a year, maybe Davis Mills gets exposed, whatever. But right now, you're just all your chips are in the middle of the table on this kid. Just see if he got something. This guy came from a place where see if he got something worked out several times. They draft Matt Castle in the 7th round. He became something. They draft Jimmy Garoppolo in the 2nd round. One thing you would say about the Patriot guys, they don't believe you have to be a top 5 pick at quarterback to win with you, right? Or to find good quarterbacks. Like Caserio has seen it. For 20 years he was around Bill. I mean, the best player was pick 199, but then all their other quarterbacks that had some success were later picks, including Jimmy.
Bill drafting Mac Jones was another part of the equation, right? If you go back a year, that created this situation. And so what it leads to then is what you've been saying, the possibility he's going to be on the team for a while. And the question then is he on the team for a while because maybe he just remains their starter, or is he on the team for a while because eventually somebody gets hurt? Maybe not, right? and then somebody is more inclined to trade for Jimmy in 3-4 months. But there's no guarantee that anybody gets hurt or that anybody needs a quarterback, at the beginning of August.
My question in that scenario, you play the game, you hope for, it's weird, you're like hoping for a Teddy Bridgewater situation, right?
Right.
Someone to get seriously injured, which I think you and I went over. It's happened only a couple times in the last decade. Like, it's not a consistent occurrence. And we also figured out that what else has changed? No one hits in training camp anymore. And here's the main key. Like, some of the guys that have got injured over the years, Trent Green, Michael Vick, those happen in preseason games. Do you know who doesn't really play in preseason games anymore? Starting quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So the likelihood that something weird would happen in that game is just diminished dramatically because those guys don't play. To me, if you are doing that scenario, which I definitely think is on the table, if Jimmy's able to throw day one of you just having an open competition, does Jimmy come back just like last year? Does it depend how Trey looks? Like, that's,
I think,
to
that
me, slippery slope.
I think first thing is it depends how Trey looks. That's the first thing.
You just get OTAs to judge him and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, you probably come in with a little bit of a preconceived notion, even though OTAs based on what last year looked like.
Go Trey, come on, buddy.
Him and Nate Sudfeld. Yeah, I mean, if he's just around until he's gone, then anything's on the table, because they traded 3 1s for Trey Lance last year, and Trey Lance was not their quarterback.
Yeah,
and they went to the NFC Championship game with Jimmy Garoppolo.
A little bit, you would say most spots that would do something like that, Trey Lance would have started at least a lot more games. The Niners were in a unique spot trying to make the playoffs. Like, think about all the other rookie quarterbacks, all on shitty teams, except Mac, who he just named the starter, week 1 or whatever.
Here's the heart of the issue. The bottom line question is, would they rather cut Jimmy Garoppolo or keep him on their roster week 1? Well, maybe not week 1, because then his contract becomes guaranteed. But they can wait up until.
When you say cutting him, do you mean cutting him at the end of training camp or cutting him like around draft time?
I mean, up until the day that his contract becomes guaranteed for the season. Would they rather?
You would agree if, like, in a couple weeks, just some random, because this is what it feels like, Jimmy Garoppolo's been cut. You would agree, like, that's kind of stupid. Like, what? That was a failure then, because then you legitimately wasted space. If you could have added some people, even if it wasn't the big guys. Like, what was the point of all this? That would have been really dumb.
Well, it makes more sense to keep him up until the last preseason game than it does to cut him in 2 weeks, unless you're gonna use the money.
Now it makes no sense to cut him.
But to me, like, if you're going to cut him in 3 weeks and you're not going to use the money, then you might as well keep him up until the last day of, the preseason, because then it's like, well, I'm not going to cut him for no reason, not use the money, and then have Trey Lance get hurt in the first preseason game.
Well, here's the other thing, Guy. If you're keeping him through, going into camp, for the most part, right? I mean, quarterbacks that have a legitimate chance to start were added basically at the end of the day, right? I saw some list of quarterbacks. They don't impact. Like, Geno Smith doesn't impact Jimmy, some of the random guys. But today, it impacted Jimmy. Well, they're going to be, listen, it might be a shitty quarterback class, but there are still going to be 3 or 4 guys that get drafted, wouldn't you say, in the top 70 picks? Right?
Well, it feels like the Falcons might do it, right? The Falcons might take somebody high. Right, yeah, so there's one.
The Panthers easily could.
Panthers could easily do it. There's 2. The thing about teams with bridge quarterbacks, the Steelers could definitely do it.
Yep.
Right.
So let's just say, like, that group of teams within the first 2 days of the
Seattle
draft,
could do it potentially.
Sam Howell, Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis off the board, and they're on these type teams. It's like, well, they're not. Those aren't options anymore.
The Vikings could do. I mean, although the Vikings did take Kellen Mond, but who knows? Detroit. Did you mention Detroit?
Zimmer hated him. I didn't mention Detroit. They easily could too.
Yeah. No, it's but again, I go back to the original question. Are they of the mind that they're going to start, that Trey Lance is their starting quarterback no matter what? Which means they'd be willing to cut Jimmy Garoppolo, in early August, hold him that long, wait and see if anybody gets hurt. Or
you're right. I don't think you would cut Jimmy until the end date. The problem then is he playing in preseason games. You risk him getting hurt.
No, he's not. He's not.
Just Trey and
No
Sudfeld,
chance.
and then some undrafted free agent running around.
You agree, right? Like if he's going to be around in a month, then there's no point in cutting him then, unless you're using that money. But there's no point because you're not getting anything. You might as well keep him around as an insurance policy for all the trouble in case something happens to Trey.
I would say by this point.
So your scenario from like last week of like he could be around a while. We're closer to that than we are to a trade right now.
I'm fully expecting him to be on the team now heading into training camp. And I think the number one question is going to be, what the hell are you going to do? Because luckily they don't have to worry about it because he's injured. OTAs is easy. He's either rehabbing on his own, rehabbing there. It doesn't matter. He can't practice, right? Trey can get all the reps. OTAs is, I honestly think because he's injured, it makes this situation possible. I think it would get, I think you would borderline have to cut him if he was healthy. Because I think that would create, like, what are you fucking doing?
Well, it would be weird. But again, John, think about the flip side. Is like you're sitting there making that decision. You're going, Trey Lance got hurt last year. The game during his first start.
Can you really think about that? Eventually, you just got to go with the guy. Like if
I'm
Matt
not saying
Stafford gets hurt, the Rams are screwed.
Of course. I'm saying if you've made it that far, at least let's get through the camp and make sure Trey. Because the last thing I want is to cut Jimmy and then try and re-sign him in 3 weeks if Trey Lance got hurt? I'm just saying, if they hold that long, I expect them to keep holding. That's the best way to say it.
It does feel a little unprecedented what they're doing, doesn't it? Usually people that get really aggressive for young quarterbacks pivot pretty quick to that kid.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's arguable. I mean,
but he's got to be ready, right? Is the way they look at it.
And my pushback always is, what the fuck does that even mean? Like,
well, no, I agree with you. I'm just saying they drafted him last year, and he wasn't more ready than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, he was a major project. So it was, but you got to sometimes eventually.
I could see though. To me, if they wait through OTAs, he's still on the team. Then they're going to cut him right before camp starts.
No. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think if I was a betting man right now, I would bet on training camp opening, unless something catastrophic happens during OTAs. Which, how does anyone going to know? The likelihood of that happening is not high. He's going to be on the team.
You can't keep him for $27 million. That's idiotic. No one's saying he's on the team week one. That's a different story.
No, yeah.
Well,
you can't keep him $27 million. You can't keep him $27 million if he's starting quarterback.
Not as the backup. Yeah.
Which, if he makes it to training camp, starting quarterback is on the fucking table, right?
Yeah. Because again, that goes back to, what does Kyle think of Trey Lance's readiness? That's what it becomes. And that's where I go back. Is their mindset, Trey Lance is our starting quarterback no matter what? If they traded Jimmy Garoppolo, then it'd be easy to say, yes, they are of that mindset. But until they trade him, we don't know exactly what mindset they are of. Hit that like button. Now, I think the other question is, like, somebody brought this up. Jimmy to the Panthers for Darnold and a fifth. Dieter Kurtenbach on Twitter, I saw this one today. You and I both enjoyed this. So I texted someone in the league I trust about a hypothetical Darnold for Garoppolo trade and was told, you're an idiot. But he likes it. Now, you don't think it's crazy either, or we were talking about earlier, and we were both like, not insane. The money, though, makes it pretty difficult.
But this is what I'm saying. You keep saying they're not doing anything with the money, so who cares? Like, if they're not doing anything with the money, why wouldn't you're just going to let it be empty? You're just not going to spend the money? Like, here, because I'm behind this.
You're behind paying Sam Darnold $19 million to be your backup quarterback, just in case you could turn him into something else.
Well, again, I was behind cutting Jimmy to go sign Chandler Jones, or to go trade my second-round pick to go get like some $10 million sweet player. But if they're not going to do that, which it does not feel like they're going to do, you can't keep Jimmy as your backup, right? If Jimmy stays, I believe he starts. And if the Panthers,
you can't keep him for $27 million. You could, yeah, agreed.
And you cannot restructure because you can't move money. This is it. The contract is the contract. You either play with him or cut him or trade him. You can't do some, like, get his number down, push money back. That is not an option to me. If you do that, I'm fucking crushing you, because that's stupidity. I can't even see them doing that. Right? Push money back to further years to get the number. That's insane. Will you agree?
Yes.
But, like, Jimmy's value is his value. And maybe the Panthers just want to get a credible starting quarterback, and they could also draft a guy. I saw Ben McAdoo, who I saw Albert Breer tweeted, and I flipped on the channel today, NFL Network, they had Kenny Pickett's pro day. He looks like a defensive tackle. He looks completely different than he did a couple of years ago. But maybe he wants to get a real starting quarterback who has started games, and then they could also draft Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, whatever. And Jimmy's a true bridge because they just think Sam Darnold sucks. Well, the 49ers were interested in Sam Darnold last year. And, I mean, so was I. So were you. A lot of people were intrigued. This year did not go well. Now, not sure Matt Rule has any clue what he's doing. Joe Brady got fired, and is not even an offensive coordinator anymore. He's a quarterback coach. It might have just been a terrible situation. Not defending Sam. Watched him enough. Makes Jameis look like a smart quarterback sometimes. Like, he does some glaring things. But what if you get a little project? Again, don't love the number. And because it's a fifth-year option, it's not like you can't cut that thing in half. Like, the number's the number.
Yeah, like as Brandon says, Darnold's $18 million is guaranteed right now. Jimmy's is not, right?
It isn't. So you're stuck with it. But I do think, what if the money doesn't matter to you unless you plan on using that for someone else. And maybe Parag and Kyle and John would say, well, what if 4 or 5 weeks in, if we had cut Jimmy or moved on, something happens, a player becomes available, and we can get aggressive to go get that guy because we have the cap space. And again, these are all these hypotheticals that are like, I don't know.
I think it makes less sense for the Panthers.
Well, they don't want to play with Sam Darnold, right?
Right.
So Jimmy just gives them a credible guy that knows what he's doing. Again, I'm putting myself in their shoes. I'm with you. I don't know if it makes much sense either. But I guess the point of this more is like, I would be intrigued by Sam Darnold and be okay with just like, whatever. Pay the guy. He's getting his $18 million somewhere. Just like, let's get a project. And then maybe after the year, we bring him back on like a 2-year, $10 million deal. He's Trey's backup. We utilize him to ultimately flip. And the value we lost in Jimmy, we get back big picture through him. Like, think big. What did Roseman said? We're a quarterback factory. We just like quarterbacks. Just get quarterbacks. Now, it's Minshew's $1 million, right? Jalen Hurts costs nothing. $18 million, 18.9, I mean, 19 is a lot of money. But is Sudfeld just going to be your backup quarterback? Like, there's no upside there. Like, you could resurrect Sam.
Maybe.
It might not.
We thought that about Josh Rosen once.
It was clear. Like, I think Sam's
he'd been further along. Yeah, he'd been on more teams. Yeah. But I also think the other part of this,
I think it would register enough to like, let's sit down and have a conversation over this.
Yeah, I mean,
they're interested.
The other part of it is the Niners, clearly a big deal to them is what is value, right? So whether they're using the money or not, I think we've seen enough of the way they operate that they would not invest $18.9 million in Sam Darnold if they weren't confident they could, in return, then in a year or two, trade him for a third-round pick or rehabilitate him and make him their backup for the next 10 years, something like that, right? Yeah. So even though you're right, like if you're not using the money, what are we doing? I think they view it like, well, is Sam Darnold a $19 million backup? Is acquiring Sam Darnold for $19 million more valuable than maybe trading Jimmy in a month for a third-round pick? Maybe not. A fourth-round pick and getting all that money out of here, right? Like, I think they are very value conscious,
and that's starting to bother me a little bit. Honestly, I just think with the rookie quarterback, that is, you might be able to get away with it this year. That will not be tolerated next year. That'd be embarrassing, honestly. As you're seeing around the league, no one operates like that. The fucking Chargers, whose owner is notoriously cheap, they were slinging it around. It's your only advantage. Like, they did lose out a little bit on a year with Trey Lance by holding. Like you said, there's no clue. They might not have done this, but there were some impact guys available that they refused to do because of this situation, because of the value. Like, listen, you can operate like Farhan, and maybe every once in a while you get lightning in a bottle like last year, and then eventually you come back to earth and win 84 games. And the Dodgers win 104 again. You know, like, here's what I know. Rams are winning 12, 13 games. Know that for a fact. I'd bet $5,000 on that right now, that they will win double-digit games. The Niners, you and I were talking before we even hopped on. We're like, are we sure they're going to be?
I'm not convinced. They got like one offensive lineman right now.
I think aggressive aggression is winning in this league because you've never had more cash. You get the signing bonuses, these fuck them picks. But the rookie quarterback, like, I get, like, sometimes you can be in a pinch, right? The Falcons, they've been in a tough spot because they were paying Julio and Matt Ryan so much money. Niners, like, they have a $6 million quarterback. So, it feels like they're just obsessed with this value thing. Listen, I'm all for value, but, like, there also is, like, you need good players.
Right.
And you could argue, is there value in just having two quarterbacks? Like, well, Jimmy be the backup quarterback? Well, he just cut his head.
Well, you'd have to cut him and then re-sign him, Fletcher Cox style, for him to be the backup quarterback.
Or I think maybe you go.
Are you talking about the Panthers?
I'm talking about the Niners. Like, what if you go to Jimmy and you go, it's pretty clear no one's giving you any money right now.
Right.
We will redo your deal, and we'll guarantee every penny. You'll play for $10 million.
How about this?
Like, is anyone giving him $10 million today? Probably not, right?
Well, who?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Saints? Yeah, maybe would the Saints be like, okay, or not the Saints, the Falcons? Would the Falcons say, yeah, we're paying?
They don't have any money.
What's Mariota's money?
I didn't see it, but I don't think it's out. But it's
the Steelers. Just pick a team that's like, oh, the Steelers. Then okay,
no,
they're paying
because
Mitchell.
they already got Mitchell.
For what is he costing them this year? Like $7 million? You said, would anybody pay him 10? I'm saying, would the Steelers say, we actually like Jimmy Moore, we're only paying Mitchell 7, we'll pay him 10, $17 million for a quarterback? It's still pretty cheap combined amount.
But you could just go to Don Yee and be like, listen, here's what we want. You can shop around, and you can let them know, we'll cut you if you get more. Let me know what you get. And I can easily call the team and find out.
I'm just answering your hypothetical. Would someone offer him 10? To me, I don't think it's outrageous that somebody with a cheap quarterback right now would give him $10 million to all, and Jimmy would go, well, if I go to
think
Pittsburgh,
it's fair
I
to
could
say
beat
that's
out
unlikely.
Mitchell Trubisky.
I think it's unlikely.
$10 million is just so cheap for a quarterback.
But all these teams now have just like $10 million guys.
Yeah, let's not. But I think teams will sign a $10 million guy to beat out a $10 million guy. They're not going to sign a $27 million.
How often does that happen, though?
I think
Jimmy doesn't.
Often, I don't know how often, but to me, Jimmy Garoppolo is not available for $10 million that often either. $10 million gets you Andy Dalton, who's not as good as Jimmy Garoppolo. Or at least he wasn't last year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. He's got to get healthy. But I'm just saying, to me, it would not be out of the realm of possibility that Jimmy could find a $10 million contract somewhere.
But this is...
Hell, Miami might give him 10.
But see, you can wait till after the draft. You got even more leverage.
Sure.
So, like, once the Steelers, like, well, we got Malik Willis. We don't need... We got our guys, right? Some of these other teams will have the 2 or 3 have the rookie quarterback, and then they wouldn't even entertain that. So maybe the Niners know we wait them out, we can get them to take a huge pay cut. Because then they're really stuck. That's where they would be stuck. 4 teams add quarterbacks in the top 3 rounds that would have been interested in that scenario are now out.
Right.
And now you either force them to take a pay cut / something catastrophic happens, which I still feel is a very, very... I feel something catastrophic happening to a quarterback in training camp was even less likely than them getting some sweet compensation for Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he wouldn't restructure. He would say, cut me. I'll see what I can get. What's your offer? Can I find a better offer somewhere? You're going to pay me $10 million?
I think you let him. You go shopping around. I think that happens a lot.
Yeah, and who knows? I mean, he might take less to go somewhere else for all we know, right? But if I were him, I'd go, well, they're telling me I'm not the starting quarterback, but why can't I be the starting quarterback?
Yeah, and what if Kyle's like, I kind of like you more than the other guy right now?
Josh says Fox will give him $10 million to announce games. He could probably get more than 10.
Have you seen Jimmy's Subway commercial?
Yeah.
Subway's paying a lot of guys, just
paying a lot of
people. A lot of guys that are not eating Subway. Charles Barkley would be the one guy I could see eating Subway once a week. The Stephs, the Bradys, the Jimmys. Jimmy Garoppolo, I bet if you looked at his diet, it would be outrageously clean. I bet Jimmy Garoppolo's diet would blow Steph's away.
But that's the thing about this commercial. Nobody thinks any of these people are eating Subway.
Belichick, remember he did the Subway commercial where he sat on the bench?
Oh, that's right. Briefly,
I could see him eating a meatball sub or something.
Somebody brings it to him. If you said every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Belichick has a meatball sub from Subway.
Hearing you say that out loud, probably unlikely because they would just have a cafeteria there. But I could see them giving him like a free, like 5,000. I bet he gives those out, right? To like his workers. He gets a couple like $1,000 free Subways.
Here's $20. Thanks for helping me move my bed.
No. Like I give my quality control guy, he gets like $1,000 a Subway on a card.
Oh, thanks, Bill. Merry Christmas to you too.
What he used to give out, the green grenades that had like $5,000, $10,000.
Yeah, and then what was the deal? They were mad. The league started taking money out, or they started getting taxed on it because he wasn't allowed to do it anymore.
No, Bill never got in trouble. It was Mangini tried to do it,
trouble.
And then because he did it like above board, right? He wasn't just going to give cash, and then Tannenbaum's like, you can't just give cash, tax evasion or whatever. You got to just give them money. He's like, no problem. And then he'd give people money and put them in different tax brackets. They're like, what the fuck? I'm paying more in taxes now than I was. I'm not even making this money. Mangini couldn't win.
No, it was all bad. It was all bad. The Saints, you mentioned it. We talk about the Panthers. So the Saints, I mean, again, I'll reiterate, 3 teams Monday signed or acquired quarterbacks. 2 years, $21 million. 2 years, $28 million. $21 million guaranteed for New Orleans. Which, you know what? So I get that one too for them, right? Like you said, cheaper. I would add younger. I would add has been there.
Knows him. Yeah.
I would argue led the league in touchdowns 2 years ago, but more importantly, Jameis's touchdown, 7 games, 14 touchdowns, 3 picks last year, 5-2 as a starter in New Orleans. So makes a ton of sense. The only thing that was going to stop that from happening, I think, was probably Deshaun or a setback with his knee. But so it's cheaper. It doesn't cost us a pick or 2 twos.
We know him. He knows us.
We like him.
Teammates know him. He knows the offense.
28 years old, just turned 28.
To me, the only thing I've been saying is like, Mickey is going to have way more juice than DA. But if Dennis Allen didn't like him, maybe he could push for someone else. But pretty clear, like, they're cool with it. Right? Tell you one thing for Jameis. I think he's done a really good job after it got really weird and the Uber driver. But just that last year in Tampa and then his couple years in the Saints, just kind of acting like a pro. I know people make fun of him and some of the workouts on the medicine balls and stuff, right? But I think he's had a pretty good comeback, don't you? For a guy that felt like this guy was going to get run out of the league type deal.
Yeah.
He's never lived up to, obviously, the number 1 overall pick, but it felt like he was teetering like, is this guy going to be in trouble? And it might have been that Bruce Arians year where he threw all those picks, but he also threw a ton of touchdowns. Sean Payton believed in him, and that changed his life.
Yeah, I will say, as a comment here from Ultimate Niner on the stream, but he had that 5 TD game against the Packers. When you look at Jameis's game log, it's less impressive than the line I just read. He threw 5 touchdowns week 1 against Green Bay. His next game, he was 11 of 22 with 2 picks against Carolina. 13 of 21. They just didn't throw the ball much.
What was his? How many games did he play this year?
7.
What was his line?
Yeah, so what I said, 59%. 14 touchdowns, 3 picks. But when you look at the game log, 5 of those touchdowns came week 1 against Green Bay.
It was like Chandler Jones had 10 sacks. 5 of them came week 1.
Yeah. Then he was 11 of 22 the next week with 2 picks and 4 sacks against Carolina.
Carolina, good defense early.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then he plays New England. Big Bill, 13 of 21, 2 touchdowns. Okay. 3 sacks. Then he plays the Giants, 17 of 23. That's good. 226, 1 touchdown. Then he plays Washington, good defense, 15 of 30. But of his 50% completions, 4 touchdowns. So there's 9 TDs in 2 games. But hey, I'm not going to penalize you for big touchdown performances. Then he's 19 of 35 against Seattle, which is 54%. 1 touchdown.
On the road? On the road. Tough environment.
Could have been inclement. Late October. Then he's 6 of 10 against Tampa. I don't know. Did he get hurt in that game?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So, not exactly the high-flying Saints offense. But, this is the point. The point is,
not Mr. Accuracy.
They're not in love, and they still went with this guy. That's the point.
Well, it didn't cost him anything, right? They didn't have to give a 3rd or 4th round pick, and it was cheaper.
Prediction, John.
Whammy.
Prediction: if the Niners were to cut Jimmy and re-sign him, they'd do a 2-year deal, so that they could trade him for 2 twos next year. They would give him the Jameis contract.
That's insane.
It would shock me. Did you see, by the way, Carlos Correa's big contract with the Twins?
1-year deal.
It's effectively a 1-year opt-out, so he'll just next year less shortstops on the market. 1 year,
You know why?
$35 million.
It's because Boris stole him from the agent, so they got to split the deal. And then
That's right,
Boris
because he got offered a bunch of contracts before the lockout.
Yeah, so Boris, it's
But if he gets hurt,
wink.
if he tears an ACL, he just gets 30. He just opts back in.
Risky, yeah. But then Boris keeps splitting the commissions with this guy.
Yeah, maybe he'd still opt out.
These agents, man.
It's crazy. Like, what does Carlos care who he's paying the money to? But also, Carlos Correa, all due respect, doesn't want to go play for the Minnesota Twins. So, it worked out well. It worked out well. Before we go any further, John, do you want to tell the people?
Well, I think the 49ers were hoping someone would contact them from Indeed.com/ham and say, listen, I need a quarterback who has experience in hard coaching situations, in playoff situations, who's a good guy. The problem is it feels like the phone lines are not ringing. But if you run HR, if you run a company, if you're part of a company and in charge of hiring, go to Indeed.com/ham. And here's what happens. Right now, with a $75 job sponsored job credit to upgrade your post at Indeed.com/ham, offer valid through March 31st. And we're coming down the home stretch here, guy. Go to Indeed.com/ham to claim $75 job credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/hams. Terms, conditions apply. Need to hire. You need Indeed.
/ham. Just
/ham.
no S on that. It's like McDaniel and McDaniels. With Instant Match, over 90% of employers get quality candidates as soon as they sponsor the job post, according to Indeed data. Candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who will only see it in a search. So like John said, Indeed.com/ham get you a $75 credit before March 31. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. You need Indeed.
Indeed.
Jason on the stream, bang, bang, no trade game. What's that? You just what?
Nothing. I don't want to just keep talking in the comments.
Okay. I wanted to sprinkle this one in. Somebody said on Twitter, surprised you guys didn't address this. Well, let's address it then. Don't be surprised. Carolina or Seattle, maybe they're trying to tank and don't want Jimmy winning an extra game or two over Donald or Drew Lock. I don't think either one. Carolina, people's heads are going to roll if they don't win football games. And Seattle might be the same.
Pete Carroll ain't trying to tank. He might tank naturally because their team's not very good. There's not 1 ounce in his body that thinks we're going to lose games this year. He's going to get humbled fast, but they are not going to try to lose.
Bad news, John. I was listening to something Mayoko said. Turns out Ray McLeod, remember how I used to yell Hightower on special teams?
Yeah.
I now have pulled up Ray McLeod's game log. This is Mayoko pointed this out. What you see on the right-hand column there is fumbles.
Yeah.
In 4 years, he has 11 fumbles, including 4 last year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the good news is he's recovered most of his own fumbles. He's only lost 3 of them. So he's an adept fumble recoverer. Unfortunately, the problem is that he fumbles them.
Well, let me tell, am I reading this right? So he's lost 11 fumbles. His team or him have only recovered 3. They've lost 8 of those.
Oh, do you take? Oh, yeah. I guess you're right. I'm misreading it. It's fumbles lost, so fumble recoveries. So he himself has recovered 3. So he's not good at recovering his fumbles. Now maybe his team has recovered the others. I need fumbles lost, which I don't think was in the.
So potentially they've lost 8. He's accounted for 8 turnovers as a special teams guy.
Potentially.
I will say this. That's why we do drills called ball security. 5 points of pressure. Coach that up. That's not. That's not ideal. It's it's a little concerning.
Yeah, no number here on fumbles lost. So just you can go ahead and I wouldn't say assume that those were lost, but they were. I know how many were kept by him.
Yeah, it's not. What are you gonna do? Not everyone has. You know what
this tells me? It tells me he's trying to make plays, John. I appreciate that.
Yeah, some
mistakes
guys
of aggression.
Some guys are loosey goosey with the ball. Right, guy. When I got to Philadelphia, Deshaun would just throw the ball right the moment he caught it, just like back to the ref. Like, bro, you're not even down. Shady held the ball out like this, like a loaf of bread. So I mean, I'm, I remember Fresno State. We had guys remember right when I got there, the play was Marlon Moore jumped over Texas A&M, and that was a huge coaching point all off season.
Reaching for the pylon.
But it's like there's a balance always. Like, guys, we still want you to make plays, but we got to be careful because that goes. What happens when you fumble? It goes out of bounds, then it's a touchback.
If it goes through the end zone, yeah.
Which I've seen a lot of people always hate on that rule. I like it.
I like it. There should be a punishment for a risk.
I just come from a group of playmakers, and I want my playmakers trying to make plays. And if we lose balls,
brother.
we lose balls.
Nate
feels like the Belichick Parcelsian crew gets very like ball security. I come from like let's score points.
We'll have to check the tape on your Trent Cannon take, but Nate says not all of those were on returns, but he's got to tighten it up. Okay.
My thing with Trent Cannon would he be like he'd come out, like fight. He would just. There was no rhyme or reason to his action, and I didn't think. Did you ever feel that? I guess he had one or two good returns. Like Trent Cannon was some like Cordarrelle Patterson back there.
He had a good return against. Was it Seattle? You have a really good return against, or the Saints?
He also had the double. Yeah, I think he had the double fumble against Seattle. Remember, muffed then the fumble.
Andre says only. Yeah, that's right. I do remember that. The good news about a muff, John, is you can't advance it, so the defense can't.
So if you do lose, they just stop right.
That's right. If you're going to fumble, just muff. Andre said he only lost 4. I mean, it's. You sent me this one today. This deserves further examination. The spot track of Deshaun Watson's contract. Just for no other reason than to look at I'm no Joe Corey here, but just to look at the numbers. $55 million cap hit in 2023.
Do you think any chance they would cut him in 2022?
For a $219 million dead cap?
Isn't the cap 208?
Yeah.
I have to ask the capologist.
Grow.
Can you have a bigger dead cap than the actual cap? You can't have more cap hits than the cap, but can you have a bigger dead cap than the cap? What if they're like, we're just not going to play football? What if they cut him? He gets arrested. He goes to jail, and we're like, you got to pull like an Aaron Hernandez. You just like cut him immediately. Could you cut him and still have a team if your dead cap's $230 million?
If a guy's in jail, does he count against your cap if you cut him? Or is that like for cause cut?
One thing I wonder, once like the true details, is there a clause in there like if he goes to jail, it's all null and void? You have to think there is, right?
You would, I mean... by the way, follow up on Ray. He was a top gunner also. So it's possible those fumble recoveries maybe
aren't related to his fumbles. Yeah, he's just jumping on fumbles.
Maybe he's around the ball all the time. That's what you would say about
guy. 11 fumbles in 4 years and it's clear Ray. How many chances is he getting per game? A couple, right? It's not like he's getting. It's not 20 touches a game. Ray, I'd love to get Mike Tomlin on the horn and get his opinion on old Ray's ball security. I bet he was driving old Mike a little nuts.
Clemson. Let's check his college stats.
Is that where he's from?
Yeah.
I don't know much about Ray McLeod. I'll be fully honest.
Looks like I've got no fumbles in college.
I think the commenter recommented he wasn't talking about Ray being a gunner. He meant Cannon being the gunner. I don't know if Ray.
Oh, okay.
When I close my eyes and think of Ray McLeod, I don't think gunner. I think more like Kelvin Benjamin return type guy. But I again could be wrong. Not a huge Ray McLeod scouting report guy.
Well, we'll do that video in June, I think.
Yeah.
What we saw at OTAs from Ray McLeod. I guess if he drops a punt, well.
Yeah, maybe Tomlin. Yeah, who knows?
So Baker's still out there.
Baker,
I mean,
man.
this is quite.
Shows you why you strike when the iron's hot, though. About the commercials, because it could end it. Unless you're like Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, right? They could have been in commercials for decades. But like Baker may never get commercials again. He rode at whatever the insurance company and Hulu.
State Farm?
He got some cash quick.
State Farm? No, Progressive.
Yeah, one of the two.
Neither.
Felt like he was a big
Could be
Hulu
neither.
guy. I remember him in Hulu.
That's right. For wasn't weren't there? It was like was Saquon one of their guys? Michael on the stream says, I can't imagine having Jimmy around would be good for Trey. It's a really odd situation, putting some guys who believe in Trey against other dudes like Kittle, Debo, and Juice. I don't know.
You know what's funny thing
Does
about
Debo
Hulu?
is Debo taking a side on this?
No,
I don't
they
think
will.
he's taking a side.
It's the thing about Hulu. Like I've been watching some Hulu the last month. I don't see any live sports there. They make that up? Was that short lived?
Maybe there's a different package than the Hulu is for live sports. Maybe you can get live. Is there like Hulu TV and Hulu?
That's a good
you
question.
have
the Hulu app. The Hulu, like I don't just see like the NBA game. Hulu does live sports. Like where's that? Was that just a marketing campaign where you can kind of lie, kind of like making Jerry West look like a crazy guy, but it's actually not true, but it doesn't even matter?
Good. I don't know. Good question.
I think Disney owns Hulu, so Disney owns obviously ESPN. They have live sports, so shouldn't they just be able to repurpose it on Hulu?
They had a Sharks game on Hulu last night, or the last time I was on Hulu. So maybe that's why you're watching the Hulu TV live. Is different. Yeah. Okay. You don't get the free live sports for $8, John. Where did this comment go? Did anyone in the
pay $8? God.
No. Hulu is probably you pay $8 for Hulu is my guess, and their point is no, you're not getting free live sports for $8. You probably got to pay $60 for TV, same as YouTube or whatever. All right, did anyone in the NFC separate themselves this offseason? I mean, post retirement, Buccaneers did. I'd say getting Tom Brady back. They separated themselves. Seahawks separated themselves the wrong direction.
Yeah. I'd say the Rams and the Rams and Tampa feel pretty good about their lot in life right now.
Are they any further ahead of where they were last year? Would maybe be the question. And
I'd say one won the Super Bowl and the other almost beat that team. So
but I think the point is like, have they separated from what they were last year? I think is.
I would say no, but the NFC got dramatically worse.
Yeah. Arizona, I don't know what they are, but they're not better. The Niners right now are not better,
I'd say the Niners are relatively neutral, though. Added a corner, lost a guard, still have two quarterbacks, which is not a negative. I mean, they do have two quarterbacks.
In theory.
I mean, they did last year. And I mean, Trey
I'm just saying in theory it's not a negative.
It feels like it'd be a little weird after Jimmy said a goodbye, but we've seen crazier.
Yeah.
Jimmy said his goodbyes. And honestly, it felt like
it's the opposite of an Irish goodbye.
It didn't feel like he was forced it either. It was like, this is emotional, man. I feel for Jimmy. And even John was like, we love the guy. We'll do everything possible. Like, everyone was on the same page.
Mike McDaniel gone.
Yeah, it's a loss. Could you argue that's their biggest loss of the offseason? We're going to find out.
We'll find out. But I think it's significant.
Well, I don't mean like we're going to find out how good of a head coach he is or whatever, but I think his loss.
We'll find out.
Guys talk about him. Fuck.
Green Bay lost Devontae Adams. Now, I saw a stat today that they were 7-0 with an average of 32 points per game without Devontae in his career. But I wouldn't say they're better right now.
Yeah, to me, there's a big difference of like losing a guy for a game or two when you know he's on the team and like having guys like, we got to step up this week, and literally not having the player on your squad.
Say what you want about Dallas, but they lost. I mean, what you want about Amari's value, but they lost Amari.
Dallas got worse.
And Lyle Collins.
Football
team got Carson.
I like Cedric Wilson, the number one receiver. He signed with McDaniel.
He's a good player.
Fuck. Randy Gregory, who's was weird against the Niners, but I think he's a solid player for them. Cowboys lost talent. They got Zeke still.
New Orleans lost Sean Payton, right?
And they were 9-8.
And they were 9-8. Yeah, I mean they were not close to the division, but so you're right. By process of just what other people did. I mean, Rams lost Vaughn, but they didn't start last year with Vaughn.
They did lose. I saw someone say in the chat they did lose coaches, which is true, right?
Who's
They've
that?
lost the Rams.
Oh,
they lost a bunch of offensive coaches. I would say this.
Yeah, Kevin O'Connell.
McVay has kind of rattled through some coaches now and been pretty good at replacing, right? He went from Wade Phillips to Brandon Staley to Raheem Morris. Like, their defense has been sweet. He went from Shane Waldron to Kevin O'Connell to Liam Neeson. What's his name?
Cohen. Is
Liam
it?
Cohen.
What's his first name? Adam? Liam Cohen?
Yeah. You think he got a bar mitzvah when he was 13?
For the brand. You damn right he did. For the star, John.
What's the definition of bar mitzvah when a boy becomes a man?
Well, I don't. Yeah, I mean,
is that the logic behind it? Like a guy's becoming like.
I'm not sure if it's necessarily defined as becoming a man, but definitely becoming passing through a gate of responsibility. Yeah.
Even though my pushback, whoever had that idea, hundreds of thousands of years ago, I'd be like, when you're you still got 5 more years at home. There's a lot of mom making you meals still. There's a lot of you go into your room that's paid for by mom and dad.
Yeah, it's not about separating. It's more about becoming just a member of the, religious community, like a full, there are some, gotcha. You're part of the synagogue now.
Yeah, the tribe.
And it's up to you to decide what you do.
I just remember Noah Burkhoff, when I went to his bar mitzvah, I had to learn a lot of Hebrew. And that's hard.
It is.
Going to those classes.
Maurice said Rams lost their left tackle. True, they did lose Wentworth. That's Whitworth. I always call him Wentworth. Played for the Bulldogs.
I think he played in the league too. I
did.
think he actually played for the Rams.
I think you're right. First name, I always want to say Austin, but I don't think it was Austin.
No, I think you're
Is
right.
it Austin also?
Yeah. I get credit for that one. Vikings.
First name?
Austin Wentworth. Okay. Short-lived, actually, Didn't play long in the league.
Jamal says Niners have some unknowns, considering we don't know a lot about the O-line outside of Big Trent. True. But however you want to define it, like, we don't know who their starting left guard is. The longer we go, I don't know if the longer we go means it's. I would say the longer we go means it's less likely that Alex Mack retires and is just back, right? The longer without him retiring.
Can I read you this nugget on Austin Wentworth's Wikipedia?
Yes.
A little bit of a downer.
Oh.
On May 13, 2015, it was reported he was retiring due to blood clots. After surgery, he lost muscle in his left leg that controlled the up function of his foot and will have to wear a brace the rest of his life.
Do you
remember this? He was on Minnesota's practice squad.
I'd forgotten about that, but I do remember that.
That's pretty wild.
Right guard, right tackle.
I mean,
coming off a quad.
Who's that? Oh, yeah.
I was going through the Niners offensive line, that's all.
Well, I think McGlinchey is healthy. McGlinchey's a question mark. Remember last year?
Yeah, I mean, one thing.
Got it together.
I heard Mayoko say that the injury had been something that they had told him previously he might need surgery. He could get surgery for it. He didn't want surgery. And then when it finally tore, it just made the decision for him that it had been something that was bothering him. But until you come back from a torn quad, I don't assume you're coming back full. You know what I mean? It's just significant injury. Right?
Agreed.
You agree with that?
Yeah.
So.
Sounds painful, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds terrible.
I remember when Joe Staley, the Super Bowl year, had his femur shattered against the Bengals and hopped off. You just realize these guys, I mean, can you imagine just the pain? Now, at the time, Joe might say the adrenaline, it hadn't really set in and hurt more later. But, I mean, I would imagine there was a crack that he heard. Because one thing in the Belichick Patriot book, Marcus Pollard said that it was the loudest when he hit Brady's knee. He said he'd never heard noises like that, like the crunch, crimp. It's there are just times when you probably hear things. You're like, oh, my God, what the fuck was that? Honey Badger?
Honey Badger on the Niners would be sweet.
The Niners have any money? What are they going to offer him? Vet minimum?
What's he going to cost? I mean, if you're still a free agent on March 21st.
I mean, still a couple $1 million. The other thing is you just have to, even if it's not guaranteed, let's say it's if you make it to the season $4 or $5 million, once he's on the team, it's guaranteed. That's where it gets tricky. He is getting old, but actually not that old.
I mean, football old. We'll be 30 this season, right?
A lot of wear and tear. Played a lot.
I think 29 now will be 30. I think it's what is the number.
Been in the league like 9 years.
Did you see Leonard Fournette is visiting the Patriots?
Kind of like that. I think Lenny turned into a pretty good player.
Seeking $12 million a year.
That's probably a problem for Lenny. Because I actually think Lenny, I think the Chargers need a big back. I think I think the Bills need a big back, but I would imagine Lenny's got a little vibe for himself, thinking how about 3 years, $35 million, guarantee 28?
I'll bring my ring into the locker. I'll bring my ring into the locker room.
Lenny, weren't you cut a couple years ago? And Tom Brady had to have you over to his house in Tampa, and then he told Aaron's let's try this. Didn't that happen not that long ago? Lenny's yeah, but see me since. I'll say this for Lenny.
They were stupid for cutting me, is what he would say.
He did look pretty good on Tampa Bay. He's a good player. Not a $12 million player, but a good player.
Colin on the stream says, Shanahan would love to run playoff Lenny into some car crash tosses.
I can see the Niners being interested in Lenny for about $3 million.
Yeah, not 12. But again,
Lenny, I would stay away.
What you seek and what you get is, if you were Lenny, you would stay away from the Niners. Oh,
yeah, he'll kill you.
Absolutely murder you. I agree.
I bet Trey Sermon's hoping I wonder if I just get traded. Yeah. This.
God, please, Mike McDaniel, please, you be the one that loved me.
Well, imagine being Elijah Mitchell. You're how am I going to make it to going into my fourth year? How am I going to make it to just
hold out
contract status?
Can you hold out? Has anyone held out after their rookie year?
No, because he's not extension eligible, so it makes no sense.
Just sit the year out, but I guess then your contract doesn't toll.
Yeah, he's screwed. You just gotta
fake an injury early,
avoid car crashes. Dive Kyle. I don't really want to run that play. Kyle's you're running this play.
It's a hell of a catch-22.
I swear to God, if you come out of bounds, what are you gonna do? Cut me?
Yeah, I mean,
I'll go to a normal team that won't run me into the ground.
Lenny too slow for the Niners. Didn't the Pats just sign Ty Montgomery? I think they did. Did they?
Yeah.
And they have Ramondre Stevenson. That's right. All right. Well, maybe tomorrow Jimmy gets traded. We're on standby. We're like a task rabbit for Jimmy rumors.
What a run.
What a run. What do you mean, what a run? It's not over.
I know. It's never going to end. That's why the run just not going to stop. You're just force. You just keep on running.
We should do a show where we come up with all the Jimmy scenarios and see if we can eliminate any of them. Can we eliminate $27 million backup quarterback definitively?
Yes.
Okay, so there's one scenario eliminated. But we could come up with a lot more scenarios probably that you can't eliminate than ones that you can. He's going to be the day one starter, isn't he? Question on the stream.
I wouldn't mind that. Just now, it's Jimmy's our starting quarterback until further notice.
I mean,
I'd be cool with that. I wouldn't be.
No,
but
you
wouldn't.
Would
be the clarity of it.
No, thank you.
It's just I can't.
I'm here for all the drama.
Well, I ain't going anywhere because you got nowhere to go.
All right. On that note, everybody, thanks for hanging with us. Deshaun news, right? That whole story developed, and then Matt Ryan got traded out of the blue. Who knows what the next week and months will hold. So I know this, John. This has been the history of the world and the history of sports. Something unexpected will happen. It's bound to happen. It happens every time. What it will be, only the Lord knows. Thank you to everybody for hanging with us. If you're on the YouTube, hit that like button while you're here. Sammy Sosa.
What Sammy do?
Hit that. I think it was up, down. It was lips, chest, lips, chest, lips, chest. Was it lips back on the way up? I can't.
Oh, he wasn't doing crosses?
I thought it was just boom, 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 up.
Maybe right.
I don't remember. There was a brief season of summer ball where I did the Star of David, but it was very time consuming.
It worked for you? Get any more hits?
No. Had a hole in my swing
Yeah,
that the
we
Lord
all
couldn't fix.
do. Most of us do. Most of us do.
All right, everyone. Thanks for hanging. Like button. Adios, pelota.